All right, let's start by talking about the news. There's lots and lots of news, as there almost always is. If you like physics, which I certainly do, this is gravitons. The original argument set up by Freeman Dyson long ago was that we'd never be able to detect gravitons. Even using an entire planet for a detector would not be enough. But with modern techniques, they have a plan of doing it. Or what you'd do is you'd have a normal gravity wave detector, and at the same time, you'd have a detector just for gravitons, which consists of a bar of metal, a few kilograms of metal cooled down very close to absolute zero, so it's sitting in its lowest energy state, and when it gets hit by a graviton, you'd be able to detect a jump into the first excited quantum state. The point is to discover the thing which we've never understood yet. I mean, Einstein invented the theory of gravity, but it's at odds with the theory of quantum mechanics. And the question is gravity quantized or not? And this has not been resolved yet. And this would be one way to resolve it. So it would be much more possible with modern techniques. Still, this is very hard to do. The only material that's ever been cooled down to that state is like 1/1,000,000th of a gram. And here you need to move several kilograms. So it's still a heroic undertaking, but it's a lot less ridiculous than having a whole planet as a detector. So anyway, that may help us understand the quantum nature of gravity, which is one of the outstanding problems in physics.
At the very least, we go from nigh impossible to just very, very hard.
Right. Because we already have like neutrino detectors that are like 1,000,000 gallons of carbon tetrachloride in a mine a mile under the earth and stuff like that. And the gravity detectors are like that. We already have some huge projects, like the Large Hadron Collider. You can do really big things, and it may turn out to be very useful. So there are ways to beat Google two-factor authentication. There have been a few attacks have worked, but now there's more and more ways to do it. And in fact, let me get to the, here we are. This is probably the good way to understand it. The Wired article from Joseph Cox is great. The point here is it's now very easy for criminals to do this. There's info stealers. What they do is they trick somebody into clicking on a link or downloading a file, and then they run an info stealer that steals all the authentication from your machine. The original target was cryptocurrency wallets authentication, so they could just empty your cryptocurrency, but now they steal your authentication cookies and the stored passwords from your browsers and everything, so they can get in all your stuff. And then they sell those credentials to other people. That's why the most common way to hack into a company now is to just buy credentials on Telegram or on the dark web. And there's a whole industry of people stealing credentials and selling them, another whole industry of people taking those stolen credentials and monetizing them. So it's a good article going into the detail of this, that you can, just like you can set up a business, and a lot of people do, without really understanding how to run their servers. They just rent servers from other people and have cloud services provide them. You can do crime as a service. You can outsource your technical parts of your crime to other people and just buy products. And so that means people can get in your Gmail. So this guy, Davey Wonder, writes a lot of good articles on Forbes about security. So he points out, if someone was to get in your Gmail and lock you out, you might really be hosed if you really need your old mail or your incoming mail. So what you can do before that happens is you can set a forwarding to another account. And then you still have some access to get email, even if somebody hacked in. And he also talks about how to turn on Google's advanced protection here. And this is a possibility, and it might be worth switching to these modern tokens. Here you used to need a hardware two-factor authentication token like YubiKey to do it, but now they've relaxed that. Anyway, this is interesting. There is this new technique of logging into Google and Microsoft without a password, with a passkey, which is supposed to be tied to biometric authentication on your device. I've been reluctant to do it because I read from the experts that the current incarnation of this stuff is like tied to one service, and you can't really move it from one machine to another, so it's a whole lot less practical in the long run than a password. But they're all working on that. So pretty soon that's going to be worth doing, and then you'll have even stronger authentication that's harder for bad guys to steal. So here an article, kind of interesting, claiming tech workers are unhappy, more than they used to be apparently. More and more worried, especially I think because of Elon Musk. Elon Musk, after he fired 80% of Twitter and the company survived, that set the standard, and everybody says the way to meet my revenue quotas is to just fire a lot of staff. And this is really a bad idea. There's a lot of experts at business schools that have said not to do this. I think this is a terrible idea because when you lay off a good portion of your staff, everybody feels like they're trash. They're being thrown away. They're expendable. They lose loyalty. They lose morale. They all start applying elsewhere. And I think it's not the best way for a company to survive a downturn in revenue. The better way is to cut your pay. That's shown to be also, it's extremely dangerous for people to get fired. A lot of them become drug addicts, commit suicide, break up their marriage. It's really, really catastrophic for people to get fired. Whereas having a cut in your pay is not that bad. You can cope with that. And so it's, and almost inevitably, what they do is they lay off a bunch of staff, and then a few months later, they hire staff because they find out they need them. And what you do is you lose all that staff that understood how your company works. As you probably know, anybody new at a company has to spend a long time, like 6 months or a year, just finding out how the things work. And it's really, really dumb to do it this way. The only thing dumber, I think, is what Amazon's doing now. The head of Amazon is requiring everybody to go back to work 5 days a week. 4 years after the pandemic, when everybody moved to some distant state and planned to work remotely forever. And so what you do when you do that is the worst of all possible worlds. You're going to lose your best workers because those are the ones that can actually find another job. And you're going to be stuck with the worst workers that can't find another job that are willing to come back. A planned layoff would be better. But not doing either would be even better. But anyway, it's a covert way to lay off people, but you end up laying off the wrong people that way. At least that's what I think. Anyway, I see we're 5-10 minutes in. I'll stop at this one, but this is pretty amazing. Elon Musk is in legal trouble because he's been bribing people to vote, which is probably illegal at both the state and the federal level. But the feds do nothing because Merrick Garland is basically, his answer to everything is to do nothing. He wants to avoid being involved in politics, so he'll do nothing about any political crimes. And the state was ordered not to punish him, but could leave it to the feds. But now it turns out that it was totally a fraud, and his own lawyer admits it's a fraud. You see, we didn't break election law by bribing people to vote. What we did was commit fraud. We told people that if you sign up on this form, you'll be in a lottery, but there was no lottery, and we chose the winners in advance. And by the way, it's not, the winners are like known political operatives, and it's not clear that he actually even paid the winners the $1 million. Just had a ceremony with a big cardboard check, but they don't know if there ever was any real actual check. So it seems to be fraudulent in a different way, and that's his lawyer's defense. Not violating campaign election laws, but violating good old fraud laws, which Musk does all the time, just like Trump, and expects to get away with it, and does get away with it, just like Trump, because he's too rich and powerful to punish, or so it seems. Of course, it's all going to ride on the next election. If Trump loses the election, he may actually see some prison time, and there may come a time even when Elon Musk sees some kind of punishment for his many, many crimes. Anyway.
Election fever got you good, huh?
What's that?
Sounds like you got election fever.
Well, I don't know about that. But I'm not sure it's a fever, but I certainly do think it's a really important election.